The massive alien ship moved through space like a silent predator, its dark hull blocking out stars as it approached the small blue planet. Inside the command center, Commander Vexville stood before a wall of glowing screens, watching data flow across the displays like digital rain. "Sir," his tactical officer called out, his voice echoing in the metal chamber. "The scans are complete. This world looks exactly as our intelligence suggested." Vexville turned his large gray head toward the officer. His black eyes reflected the screen light as he studied the information. Earth hung before them like a peaceful marble, white clouds swirling over green and brown continents. No weapons pointed toward space. No defense ships rushed to meet them. Nothing but silence. "Show me the military sites," Vexville ordered. The screens changed, displaying images of Earth's surface, where other worlds had fortress cities and weapon platforms. This planet showed only quiet settlements, where warrior races built armies. These humans seemed to spend their time growing food and building homes. "Commodore Kethma will be pleased," the tactical officer said. "This conquest should be simple." Far below on Earth's surface, in a city that humans called New Sol, morning light streamed through tall windows. Tejo stood in his kitchen, preparing his daily tea. The routine had become automatic after so many years. Heat the water, measure the leaves, wait for the perfect moment to pour. He was about to take his first sip when shadows fell across his apartment. Through the window he watched enormous ships descend from the sky like falling mountains. Their hulls were dark metal, covered in strange symbols that hurt to look at directly. "Tejo," a voice called from the balcony. His neighbor, Hai Jin, had stepped outside her own apartment, her morning coffee still steaming in her hands. "Did you see the weather report today?" Tejo joined her on the shared observation deck that connected their living spaces. Below them, the city continued its morning rhythm. People walked to work, children played in courtyards, vendors opened their shops. The alien ships settled over major buildings like huge storm clouds, but life moved on unchanged. The collective calculated. "Tuesday," Hai-Jin said, checking the small device on her wrist. "They were only off by 1 day." "Close enough," Tejo replied, watching alien soldiers pour from the landed ships. They moved in formation, their weapons ready, their armor gleaming. But the humans on the streets simply stepped aside politely, the way people might move for a delivery truck in a farming district outside the city. Dongsu continued working in his rice fields. The alien dropship had landed right in the middle of his neighbor's property, crushing a storage shed and scorching the earth black. But the rice still needed attention, and harvest season waited for no one. An alien soldier approached. Its weapon raised. The creature stood nearly 7 feet tall with gray skin and too many joints in its arms. It spoke in harsh mechanical sounds that Dongsu's translation device converted to words. "Human, you will report to the containment area immediately." Dongsu looked up from his work, mud covering his hands and knees. "I will need to finish this section first. The rice will die if left unattended. Perhaps in 2 hours. The soldier paused, clearly not expecting negotiation. It spoke into a communication device, waited for a response, then walked away to find other humans. Dongsu returned to his work, humming softly. In the city park, children continued their games as alien soldiers established a command post nearby. Young Subin was teaching her little brother Wu Jin how to skip stones across the pond when the soldiers began setting up their equipment. Sister Wu Jin whispered, "Should we be scared?" Subin considered this question seriously, the way children do when asked about important things. "Teacher Minsu told us this would happen. She said we should watch and learn." One of the alien soldiers noticed the children and approached. Its weapon remained lowered, but its stance suggested readiness for violence. The creature spoke in its harsh language. "Small humans, you must leave this area. It is now military territory." Subin bowed politely, the way her parents had taught her to greet strangers. "We understand. Would you like us to show you where the water pipes are? You might need them for your equipment." The soldier tilted its head, confused by the offer of help. It spoke into its communicator again, then simply walked away. By evening, alien communication towers stood in every major city on Earth. The Vorthok Empire broadcast their demands in dozens of human languages, their voices carrying across radio waves and digital networks. "Humans of Earth," the message began, "you are now subjects of the Vorthok Empire. Resistance is futile. Surrender is your only option. Report to designated collection points for processing and assignment." In homes across the planet, humans listened to these words while eating dinner, helping children with homework, and planning the next day's activities. No one ran screaming into the streets. No emergency sirens wailed. No military forces mobilized for desperate last stands. The planet remained as quiet as it had appeared from space. Commander Vexvel stood in his command center, watching reports flow in from occupation forces around the globe. Every tactical objective had been secured. Every communication hub was under Vorthok control. Every major city now hosted an alien garrison. Yet something felt wrong. Conquest was supposed to involve fear, resistance, the breaking of enemy will. This felt more like moving into an empty house where the previous owners had simply forgotten to leave. The morning sun streamed through the tall windows of what had once been the most important building on Earth. Now alien symbols covered the walls and strange machines hummed where diplomats once gathered. Commodore Kethma stood at the center of it all, his gray hands clasped behind his back as he stared at reports that made no sense. 3 weeks had passed since the Vorthok Empire had claimed Earth, 3 weeks of the strangest occupation in military history. The building that humans called the United Nations had become his headquarters, but victory felt hollow and confusing. Sir, Commander Vexvel entered the room, his heavy footsteps echoing on the marble floor. He carried a datapad filled with daily reports, but his usual confidence was gone. We need to discuss the situation. Kethma turned from the window. Outside, he could see humans walking to work, children playing in parks, vendors selling food from small carts. Life continued as if nothing had changed, as if an alien army had not conquered their world. What situation? Kethma asked. Though he already knew, Vexvel activated his datapad, and holographic displays filled the air between them. Charts and graphs showed supply requests, transportation schedules, and communication logs. Everything looked normal, but somehow felt wrong. The humans comply with our orders, Vexvel began carefully. When we demanded food supplies for our troops, a man named Jinwoo listened to our requirements. He nodded and said they would discuss the logistics. But sir, 3 days later, we still had no food. Did they refuse our demands? No, sir. Returned on the 3rd day with a detailed plan for food distribution. The plan was actually better than our original request. It included nutritional information about our biology that we never shared with them. Kethma felt his mandibles click together, a sign of stress among his people. How could they know our dietary needs? That's not the strangest part, Vexvel continued. When we requisitioned their transportation systems, a woman named Yunji offered to coordinate everything. She created a schedule that moved our troops more efficiently than our own logistics officers could manage. She even suggested route improvements that reduced fuel consumption by 30%. The datapad showed maps of Earth's cities with colored lines marking troop movements. The human suggestions had indeed improved their operations, but this made Kethma more nervous, not less. Sir, Vexvel said quietly, yesterday I watched a group of human children playing near our equipment depot. One of them, a boy called Kung Ho, noticed our soldiers struggling with a heavy communications array. He and his friends offered to help carry it. Did you allow this? The sergeant in charge said yes. The children not only helped move the equipment, but the boy Kung Ho pointed out a more efficient way to set up the array. He said his uncle worked in communications before the war. Kethma walked to his command chair, but did not sit. The reports painted a picture of helpful, cooperative humans who seemed almost eager to assist their conquerors. In his long military career he had conquered 12 different worlds. He had seen species fight to the last breath, others surrender in terror, and some break under the weight of defeat, but he had never seen anything like this. Are they planning something? He asked. I don't know, sir. Our surveillance shows no secret meetings, no hidden weapons, no resistance movements. They go to work, care for their families, and help us whenever we ask. It's as if they're treating us like welcome guests rather than occupying forces. The sound of footsteps in the corridor interrupted their conversation. A human approached the command center, walking with the confident stride of someone who belonged there. He was middle-aged, wearing simple clothes, and carried a small data tablet. Commodore Kethma, the human, said with a polite bow, "My name is Jae-sung. I hope you don't mind the interruption, but we've finished our assessment. We're ready to discuss terms now." Kethma stared at the human. The translation system in his helmet converted the words, but the meaning seemed impossible. Terms? What terms? You are a conquered people. There are no terms to discuss. Jae-sung tilted his head slightly, the way humans did when they were confused. Oh, I think there might be a misunderstanding here. You see, we've been quite busy. These past 3 weeks, we've been studying your technology, learning about your biology, examining your social structures. Fascinating work. Really? Something cold moved through Kethma's chest. Studying our technology, yes, of course. My colleague Miran has been particularly interested in your propulsion systems. The way you bend space-time for faster-than-light travel is quite clever. We've learned so much from examining your ships. Commander Vexfel stepped forward, his weapon rising. You've been on our ships. Well, not exactly on them, Jace said calmly, but when your crews came down for supplies and cultural exchange, they were very helpful. They answered so many questions. Your engineer Vextel was especially informative about quantum field manipulation. Kethma felt the room spinning around him. Cultural exchange. We ordered no cultural exchange. Oh, but it happened naturally. Jae-sung smiled. Your soldiers were curious about human food, human customs, human technology. We were happy to share, and they shared so much in return. The human's calm voice carried a weight that made Kethma's skin crawl. This was not the behavior of conquered people. This was something else entirely. The truth hit Commodore Kethma like a physical blow, but Jae-sung continued speaking as if discussing the morning weather. His voice remained calm and friendly, the same tone a shopkeeper might use when describing daily specials. Your weapons systems are really quite impressive, Jae-sung said, looking at his data tablet. Hyansu, one of our materials specialists, spent many hours examining the quantum resonance chambers. He was fascinated by the energy patterns. We've managed to improve the efficiency by about 30% already. Commander Vexvel's gray skin darkened with anger. He stepped forward, raising his weapon until it pointed directly at Jae-sung's chest. The blue energy cells along the weapon's side began to glow with deadly power. You lie, Vexvel growled, his voice distorted by the translation system. Our technology is beyond your primitive comprehension. You could never understand such advanced systems. The command center fell silent except for the humming of alien machines. Kethma watched Jae-sung's face, expecting to see fear or panic. Instead, the human simply smiled and nodded toward the entrance. Actually, a woman's voice said from behind them, we've been comprehending it quite well. They turned to see a woman entering the room. She looked familiar, one of the humans, who had been delivering food supplies to their troops. She had introduced herself as Soyoung during her visits, always polite and helpful, but now Soyoung carried something that made Kethma's blood turn cold. In her hands was a device that looked exactly like Vexvel's weapon, down to the smallest detail, the same curved metal body, the same energy cells, the same quantum targeting system, though we did have to make some modifications, Soyoung continued casually. She raised the device and activated it with a soft touch, instead of the familiar blue energy beam that Vorthok weapons produced. This device created something entirely different. A shimmering field of golden light spread out from the weapon, moving like liquid mercury through the air. The field surrounded Commander Vexvel completely, wrapping around him like a cocoon. Vexvel tried to move but found himself frozen in place. He could breathe and think, but his body would not obey his commands. The field held him suspended, in the air, his feet no longer touching the ground. How Kethma whispered, staring at his frozen commander. This technology does not exist. We have never created stasis fields. No, agreed a new voice. You haven't. A man stepped through another entrance to the command center. He was tall and thin with gray hair and kind eyes. Like the others, he moved with quiet confidence, as if he belonged in this room full of alien technology. My name is Sung Min, the man said with a polite bow. Commodore, I think the question you should be asking is not how, but how many times has this happened before? Behind Sungmin came more humans. A young man called Junho carried a device that looked like an improved version of their communication equipment. A woman named Yujin held what appeared to be an advanced medical scanner. Another man, Chanwu, showed off a tool that resembled their environmental controls but with additional features that Kethma did not recognize. Each device bore the unmistakable design elements of Vorthok technology, but somehow evolved beyond their original capabilities. Like weapons that had grown into something more sophisticated, more elegant, more powerful. But it was the last person to enter the room who truly frightened Kethma. A child, no more than 12 years old, walked through the entrance with the same calm confidence as the adults. She had introduced herself as Dayoung during one of the cultural exchanges that Kethma had never authorized. The Kethri came 67 years ago, Dayoung said, her young voice carrying a weight that no child should possess. They had very interesting neural interface technology. We learned so much from them about connecting minds together. She paused, looking directly at Kethma with eyes that seemed far too old for her face. The Zextic Empire arrived 41 years ago. Their bioengineering was quite sophisticated. They taught us how to improve our bodies, how to live longer, how to think faster. Kethma felt reality shifting around him like sand beneath his feet. What are you saying? The Vorthok are our 37th visitors, Dion continued. Each group of visitors has brought us new knowledge, new technology, new ways of understanding the universe. The room began to feel smaller, the walls pressing in on Kethma from all sides. 37th footsteps echoed from the main corridor, slow and measured. An elderly man entered the command center, but his movement was strange. He walked with the smooth, flowing grace of someone much younger. His white hair contrasted with skin that seemed too healthy, too vibrant for someone of his apparent age. I am Byung-ho, the old man said simply, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had seen everything the universe could offer. I was here for the first ones. He looked at Kethma with eyes that held decades of secrets. Welcome to Earth, Commodore. We have been expecting you. Byung-ho walked to the center of the room, but there was no chair waiting for him. Instead, something impossible happened. The floor itself began to change, metal flowing like water until it formed a comfortable seat. The old man sat down as if chairs made of liquid metal were perfectly normal. Kethma stared at the chair, then at Byung. Matter did not behave that way. Solid metal could not reshape itself with just a thought, yet he had watched it happen with his own eyes. The Kethri thought they were very clever when they arrived, Byung-ho said, his voice calm and patient. They came here expecting to find simple animals who had barely learned to use fire. Instead, they found us during our first experiments with connecting human minds together. The old man smiled, remembering something from long ago. They were so surprised, but they were also generous teachers. They showed us how to transfer thoughts from one person to another, how to share memories across great distances. We learned so much from them. As Byung-ho spoke, more humans began appearing in the room, but they did not walk through doors or climb through windows. They simply materialized, stepping out of the walls as if the solid metal was nothing more than mist. A woman appeared near the communication console. I am In-suk, she said with a polite bow. A man stepped through what had been solid wall moments before. Sung-ho, he introduced himself. More humans followed, men and women whose faces seemed to shift and blur, as if Kethma's eyes could not quite focus on them properly. The Zexik were even more helpful than the Kethri, said a woman who had introduced herself as Daj. Their knowledge of biomolecular engineering was incredible. They taught us how to overcome the last barriers that separated individual minds. Thanks to them, we achieved true collective consciousness. Kethma felt his breathing become difficult. What happened to these visitors? Where are the Kethri and Zexik now? Oh, they are still here, answered a young man named Junwoo. His smile was warm and friendly, which somehow made his words more terrifying. They became integrated with us. They contribute to our collective knowledge and experience. They are much happier now, no more constant fighting, no more worrying about resources running out. The Kethri too, of course, added another voice. All of our previous visitors chose to stay with us in the end. Sungmin approached the main command console where Kethma had been receiving reports from his fleet. The human placed his hand flat against the metal surface, and immediately every screen in the room exploded into activity. Data streams flowed across displays at impossible speeds. The ship's computers began accessing information that should not exist in their memory banks. Calculations appeared that redefined basic principles of physics and engineering. The entire Vorthok network came alive with activity that made no sense. Your fleet is quite impressive, Sungmin said, watching the data flow with obvious appreciation. We have been studying it since the moment you entered our solar system. Minho, he is one of our children who was born just after the Zextech integration, has been particularly excited about your faster-than-light communication systems. Kethma turned to look through the large windows that faced the sky. Above them, his mighty fleet hung in Earth's atmosphere like a constellation of metal stars. Dozens of ships, each one capable of destroying cities, each one filled with trained warriors. But now he saw things he had missed before. Subtle changes to the ship hulls. Additional structures attached to the communication arrays. New components integrated into the weapon systems. Modifications that definitely had not been there when the fleet arrived 3 weeks ago. You have been inside our ships, he whispered, his voice barely audible. We have been everywhere, confirmed a woman named Haewon. She appeared beside him at the window, though he had not seen her approach. Your crew members are lovely people. By the way, they have been very curious about human culture and asked so many interesting questions. Through the communication systems, Kethma could hear voices from his fleet. Vorthok soldiers talking with humans, sharing meals, discussing technology and philosophy. What he had assumed was standard occupation protocol was actually something much more dangerous. They volunteered information about your ships, Haywan continued. Your engineer Vextor was particularly helpful. He explained how your quantum drives work, how your weapons target enemies, how your life support systems maintain atmosphere. For your species, on the screens around them, Kethma could see video feeds from inside his own ships, Vorthok crew members working alongside humans, showing them control systems, teaching them about their technology. The humans asked questions with genuine curiosity, and his people answered with pride in their advanced civilization. Your soldiers have been wonderful guests, So Young added from across the room. They have shared so much knowledge with us. In return, we have shown them some of our own discoveries. Cultural exchange at its finest. The frozen commander that tried to speak from within his golden stasis field, but only managed muffled sounds. Kethma realized with growing horror that his mighty invasion fleet had become a floating classroom, with his own people as unwitting teachers and humanity as very eager students. The truth came to Kethma like pieces of a puzzle finally clicking into place. Everything had been there from the beginning, waiting for him to understand. The quiet streets, the helpful humans, the strange lack of fear. It all made perfect sense now. A small girl walked toward him across the command center floor. She could not have been more than 10 years old, with bright eyes and a gentle smile. In her tiny hands, she carried a device that made Kethma's skin crawl. Energy patterns flowed across its surface in colors he had never seen before, signatures from technologies that belonged to dozens of different worlds. "Hello, Commodore," the child said, her voice carrying the patience of someone who had lived for centuries. "My name is Sujin. Your people have a choice to make now." The room began filling with more humans. Kethma recognized many of them from the past 3 weeks. There was Teho, the man who had been drinking tea when the ships arrived. Haijin stood beside him, still calm and friendly. Dongsu, the farmer who had asked for 2 hours to finish his rice planting. The children Woojin and Kyungho, who had offered to help carry equipment, but now Kethma could see what he had missed before. These were not just humans anymore. When he looked into their eyes, he saw something deeper, knowledge that came from stars he had never visited, wisdom gathered from civilizations that existed before his own people had learned to walk upright. The accumulated experience of 37 different species, all blended together into something new. "The Vorthok can join us," said a man named Hyanwu, stepping forward with open hands. "Your knowledge, your culture, your individuality, everything that makes you who you are would be preserved and honored. You would become part of something greater than any single species could ever achieve alone." Kethma felt his throat tighten. "And if we refuse?" A woman called Yunhai smiled warmly, the same expression a grandmother might use when explaining something to a confused child. "Then you return to your empire, of course, but you will carry gifts with you. New technologies that we have developed, new ideas about how the universe works, new ways of seeing reality itself." She gestured toward the screens showing his fleet. "You will share these gifts, naturally. It is in your nature to spread knowledge throughout your empire. Your scientists will study what we give you, your engineers will improve upon it, your philosophers will think about what it all means. And eventually," added another voice, "your people will develop along paths that lead them back to us, just as 36 other species have done before you." Bing Ao rose from his chair, which immediately flowed back into the floor as if it had never existed. As the old man moved, Kethma saw something that made his mind reel. The human walked, with the flowing grace of the Kethri beings who moved like liquid energy. His hands showed the precise control of Zextic bioengineering. His eyes held the quantum awareness of species whose names Kethma did not even recognize. "The choice is yours, Commodore," Byung-ho said softly. "But you should understand something important. Earth remains quiet not because we are peaceful, but because we are patient. We have learned that the universe comes to us eventually. All visitors are welcome here." Through the tall windows, Kethma watched his mighty fleet hanging in the sky. Above the city, one by one, the ships began powering down their weapons systems, not because of system failures or sabotage, but because the crews were choosing to shut them off. The integration of human technology had made war seem pointless, conquest unnecessary, and resistance simply irrelevant. In the parks below, children played together in the afternoon sun. A boy named Minsu ran across the grass, laughing as he chased another child who moved with the flowing motions of a Kethri youngster. Near the playground, a girl called Hai Young helped what appeared to be a young Zextic with some kind of learning game, their different biologies working together without conflict. The city looked exactly as it had 3 weeks ago when the invasion began, peaceful, quiet, normal. But now Kethma understood that the quiet came not from weakness, but from confidence. Earth did not need to fight its visitors because Earth always won in the end. How long do we have to decide? Kethma asked. As long as you need, Sujin replied, her small hand reaching out to touch his arm gently. We are very patient people. We have learned to wait for our guests to make the right choice. Commander Vexville remained frozen in his golden stasis field, his eyes wide with understanding and terror. Around the room, humans continued their daily activities, as if nothing unusual was happening. Some worked at computer terminals, others tended to plants that grew from wall-mounted gardens. A few simply stood and watched the alien visitors with kind, welcoming expressions. Earth remained quiet, its surface peaceful and inviting. Somewhere in the distance, preparations were already beginning for the 38th group of visitors who would surely arrive someday. Drawn by the gifts that the Vorthok would carry home with them, the planet waited patiently, as it always had, as it always would.